His fiancée left him at the altar, not for another man, but for a blank Word document. Alex stood there in his rented tuxedo, the silence of the small church suddenly louder than the organ music that had just stopped. The guests were whispering, a sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It was not Anna who walked down the aisle to deliver the news. It was her sister, Chloe, her face a mask of pity and anger. She did not say a word. She just handed him a small, velvet box. For a crazy second, he thought it was the ring he gave Anna. Instead, his fingers found a folded piece of paper. The note had only 7 words. I cannot marry your potential anymore. Potential. That word was a ghost that haunted him. It was the word his professors used, the word his first boss used, the word Anna used when they met. You have so much potential, Alex. He had a brilliant idea, a software concept that could change how small businesses manage their inventory. For 3 years, it was all he talked about. He quit his job to work on it full-time. He sketched designs on napkins, he explained the complex code to Anna until she could explain it herself. But he never wrote the first line of the business plan. The blank Word document on his laptop was his true enemy. It stared at him every morning, the blinking cursor a tiny, black heart, mocking him. Start, it seemed to say. Prove you are not a fraud. And every day, he failed. Now, standing in the ruins of his wedding day, a cold fire ignited in his gut. He would prove her wrong. He would prove them all wrong. Ignoring the confused calls from his parents, he ran from the church, jumped in his car, and drove straight home. This was it. The pain would be his fuel. He burst into his apartment, throwing his jacket on the floor. He opened his laptop. There it was. Business Plan Final V1. Docs. An empty page. He placed his fingers on the keyboard, ready to fight. And then, an email notification popped up on his screen. The sender was George Sterling, Anna's father. A man who controlled a multi-million-dollar investment fund. The subject line made Alex's blood run cold. Your pitch. My office. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Panic seized him. A pitch. Tomorrow? Anna must have set this up weeks ago, confident he would be ready. It was meant to be a wedding gift, a launch pad for their new life. Now, it was a death sentence. He had nothing. Less than nothing. He had a title on a blank page. For the next hour, he was a machine of useless activity. He made coffee. He cleaned his desk. He searched online for how to write a business plan fast. The blinking cursor on the page seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a tiny black hole absorbing all his confidence. He typed a sentence. The mission of Innovate. AI is to revolutionize. He deleted it. Too corporate. We are changing the game for. He deleted it. Too cliché. The weight of perfection crushed him. This single document had to be flawless. It had to justify Anna's faith, impress her father, and launch $1 million company. Every word he wrote felt stupid and small. The hours bled away. 10 p.m. became 1 a.m., then 3 a.m. The blank page remained. He was in a spiral, falling faster and faster. He started reading news articles, telling himself it was market research. He watched motivational videos on YouTube, listening to charismatic gurus shout about crushing your goals. He felt a brief spark of energy, but when he turned back to the screen, the white emptiness was still there, waiting. He must have fallen asleep, his head on the hard desk. He woke with a start, the gray morning light filtering through the blinds. His phone screen glowed. It was 8:52 a.m. The meeting was in 8 minutes. He had lost. He stared at the single, mocking page, the cursor still blinking patiently. It had won. He had not written a single word. As the final nail in his coffin, a new text message arrived. It was from Chloe. Anna is coming this afternoon to get her things. Please be gone by then. He had not only lost his future, he was about to lose his present and his past, all in one day. He was a ghost in his own apartment, numbly putting clothes into a suitcase. This was the bottom. There was nowhere left to fall. He saw the velvet box Chloe had given him on the coffee table. He picked it up to throw it away, but felt a slight weight shift inside. There was something under the fabric lining. His fingers found the edge of a small, hidden compartment. Inside was a black flash drive. Confused, he walked back to his laptop and plugged it in. A single folder appeared on the screen, for Alex. He clicked it open. His heart stopped. Inside were dozens of files. Market research summary. Docs. Competitor analysis. PPTX. Draft Introduction, Section 1. Docs. Potential Investor List. XLSX. Anna had done it. She had spent months, maybe years, secretly building the foundation for him. She was not waiting for him to start, she was trying to clear the path so he could not possibly fail. This was not abandonment. This was a desperate, final act of love. A surge of hope, the first in 24 hours, shot through him. He could still fix this. He could use her work. He quickly opened a new email to George Sterling. Mr. Sterling, a huge misunderstanding. I was not prepared yesterday, but the project is very much alive. Please see attached introduction. He attached Anna's draft introduction, Section 1. Docs and hit send. For a moment, he felt a wave of relief. He had a second chance. The reply came in less than a minute. Alex, I know this document. Anna showed it to me 6 weeks ago. She was so proud of the work she was doing for you. She hoped it would inspire you to write page 2. My offer for a meeting was a final test to see if you had added a single sentence of your own. I see now that you have not. Do not contact me again. The words hit him harder than any physical blow. He had not just failed. He had been exposed as a coward and a thief, trying to use her secret gift as his own. The blank page had not just cost him his fiancée, it had cost him his honor. He sat on the floor of the empty living room, the laptop in front of him. He was nothing. A fraud who talked about a dream he was too scared to build. He looked at the screen. The document was still open. Business Plan Final V1. Docs. Blank. The cursor blinked. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was not a monster. It was not a judge. It was just a place. A starting line. And in that moment, in the absolute silence of his broken life, Alex finally understood. Anna did not leave him for a blank Word document. She left him because he chose the blank document over her, every single day. He chose the comfort of a perfect, unwritten dream over the messy, imperfect reality of trying and failing. His fear of not being a genius was so great that he preferred to be nothing at all. That was his true choice. With a strange sense of calm, he moved the mouse. He dragged every file from Anna South flash drive into the trash. He emptied the trash. Then, he opened a new, completely blank document. He did not name it. He did not worry about the font or the margins. He wrote one simple, flawed, and honest sentence. The product is for people who are afraid to start. He kept writing. It was not brilliant. It was not perfect. But it was real. 2 hours later, when Anna quietly let herself in with her key, she did not find a broken man staring at a blank screen. She found Alex, sitting in the middle of the floor, surrounded by boxes, typing. He did not look up, but he spoke, his voice clear and steady. "I am sorry, Anna. For everything." She stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching his fingers move across the keyboard. Then, without a word, she turned and softly closed the door, leaving him alone with his new beginning. The most important page of his life was no longer blank. His wife bought him a $2,000 guitar to chase his rock star dream. A year later, he used it as a clothes rack. It was not a conscious decision. It just happened. First, it was his work shirt, draped over the smooth curve of the body after a long day. Then a pair of jeans over the neck. Now, the beautiful Fender Stratocaster, a sunburst of color and promise, was just another piece of furniture, a silent monument to his failure. Every evening when David walked through the door, it was the first thing he saw. And every evening, a familiar wave of shame washed over him. His real antagonist was not his boring office job or his lack of time. It was that silent, six-string judge in the corner of his living room. Tonight, as he added a fresh shirt to the collection, his wife Emily walked in. She did not say a word. She just looked at the guitar, then at him. Her silence was louder than any accusation. In that moment, David made a choice. He would prove her wrong. He stormed over, pulled the clothes off, and sat down with the instrument. He de-show her. He de-show himself. But his fingers were clumsy, the strings bit into their soft tips, and the sound that came out was a discordant, buzzing mess. The silence in the room grew heavier, more suffocating. As he fumbled, Emily finally spoke, her voice dangerously soft. "My parents are coming for dinner on Saturday. They're so excited to hear you play something." The week leading up to that Saturday dinner was a slow-motion disaster. David's choice to prove himself had backfired, trapping him in a cage of expectation. Each night, he'd come home from work, his brain fried from spreadsheets and meetings, and stare at the guitar. It was no longer an invitation to a dream, it was a threat. He'd pick it up, his hands sweating. He'd try to force his fingers into chord shapes he'd seen on YouTube. The result was always the same, ugly, stuttering noises that made his teeth ache. The guitar felt alien in his hands, a beautiful tool he had no right to touch. His frustration grew into a quiet, simmering anger. He started finding excuses to stay late at work. He picked a fight with Emily about the grocery bill, anything to fill the silence that the guitar had created between them. On Friday night, the eve of the dinner, he hit his breaking point. He sat alone in the living room, the guitar on his lap, and tried to play a simple G chord. B-Z-Z-Z-Z. Thump. Dead note. He tried again. And again. A hot wave of self-loathing washed over him. He was not a musician. He was an imposter. Defeated, he made a final, desperate decision. He could not face the disappointment in her parents' eyes. He could not endure his own failure. He stood up, carried the $2,000 instrument to the hall closet, and buried it deep behind old winter coats and forgotten shoes. As he closed the door, the click of the latch sounded like a final judgment. The dinner was a nightmare of forced smiles and polite conversation. David felt like a fraud, his secret hidden just a few feet away in the darkness of the closet. Finally, Emily's father turned to him, a warm smile on his face. "So, David. Emily tells us you've become quite the musician." David's blood ran cold. He opened his mouth to form a lie, an excuse about being too busy, about a broken string, anything. But Emily cut him off. "Dad, do not." Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. She turned to David, her eyes filled not with anger, but with a deep, shattering sadness. "I should not have bought it for you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It was a mistake." For a second, David felt a rush of pure relief. She understood. She was not judging him. This was his escape. But then she continued, and her next words twisted the knife. "I was cleaning out the attic last week and found my old art supplies. My canvases, my charcoals. I remembered how much I loved to draw." She looked him straight in the eye. "But the difference is, I never made you spend your savings on my abandoned dream. I never put my failure in the middle of our living room for you to look at every single day." The relief vanished, replaced by a shame so profound it felt like a physical weight crushing his chest. He was not just a man who had quit. He was a man who had carelessly turned someone else's sacrifice, someone else's belief in him, into a dirty laundry basket. He was at the absolute bottom. That night, long after her parents had left and Emily had gone to bed, David sat alone in the silent, dark living room. Her words echoed in his mind, "I never made my failure a burden for you." And in that darkness, something finally clicked. The enemy was never the guitar. It was never Emily's quiet disappointment. It was his own suffocating ego. He was not afraid of failing, he was afraid of being a beginner. He wanted the glory of the rock star without the boring, painful, unglamorous work of learning the first chord. The guitar was not a burden. It was a gift of faith he had been too cowardly to accept. Quietly, he walked to the closet and pulled the fender from its tomb. He sat down, not with the frantic pressure to perform, but with a strange sense of calm. He did not try to play a song. He did not try to form a chord. He just placed his finger on a single string and plucked it. A clear, clean note filled the silence. He let it ring out until it faded. Then he played another. His new goal was not to play for her parents, or for Emily, or for some imaginary crowd. It was to learn how to play one note perfectly. That was all. Months passed. The pressure was gone, replaced by a quiet, daily ritual. 15 minutes, every day. No exceptions. One evening, Emily came home from work and stopped in the doorway. She heard music. Not a rock anthem, but a simple, clean melody, played with patience and care. She looked into the living room. David was sitting on the sofa, the sunburst guitar resting in his hands where it belonged. And on the chair beside him, neatly folded, sat a pile of his work clothes. His ex-fiancée mailed his engagement ring back with a bill for the dates he could not afford. The small, cushioned box did not rattle. Alex knew what it was before he opened it. The weight was not in the ring, but in the finality it represented. He lifted the platinum band, the diamond catching the dim light of his studio apartment. Beneath it lay a single folded piece of paper. It was not a letter. It was an invoice, meticulously itemized in a cold, corporate font. Dinner at Aperture, $482.50. Weekend in Napa, your half, $1,120. 00. Hamilton tickets, $788. 00. The list went on, a clinical autopsy of their 2-year relationship. Total due, $8,340. 50. The antagonist was not just Chloe, his ex, it was the number. A number that declared him a fraud. A man who had pretended to be more than he was. His tech startup had collapsed 6 months ago, taking his savings, his confidence, and his future with it. This invoice was just the tombstone. He sank onto his worn-out couch, the paper trembling in his hand. The choice was clear and agonizing: ignore it and let her have the last word, confirming his worthlessness in his own mind, or engage in this insane game. He chose the latter. He wrote a check for $50, all he could spare after rent, and mailed it to her, a pathetic first installment on a debt of humiliation. He thought it would make him feel better. It did not. 2 days later, his phone buzzed with a notification. A friend had tagged him in an Instagram story. It was a picture of his check, held in Chloe's perfectly manicured fingers. The caption read, "Reparations have begun. A reminder to all my girls, know your value." #wasted time. The public humiliation was a lit match on his last nerve. Alex doubled down. The debt was no longer about money, it was a crusade to erase the shame. He started driving for a ride-share service after his day job coding for a soulless insurance company. The nights bled into mornings. His world became a blur of blurry streetlights, the smell of stale coffee, and the hollow chime of a new ride request. He sold his vintage guitar. He canceled his gym membership. Every dollar that was not for ramen or rent went into an envelope addressed to Chloe. $150 one month. $220 the next. Each payment was a small piece of his life force, mailed away. He was a ghost haunting his own body, fueled by shame. The downward spiral tightened. His car, essential for his night job, broke down. The repair cost wiped out a month's worth of payments. He missed the self-imposed deadline. A text message from Chloe lit up his phone at 3 a.m. Running a little behind, are not we? It was a digital sneer. He felt a suffocating pressure in his chest, the weight of a failure he could not escape. He was living only to satisfy the judgment of a person who no longer wanted him. Then, the letter arrived. It looked official, with a logo for a prestige asset recovery firm. The language was cold and threatening, mentioning potential legal action and damage to his credit score. Chloe had sold his humiliation to a collection agency. The game had changed. This was not a personal vendetta anymore, it was a professional hunt. Alex felt the floor drop out from under him. He was completely and utterly trapped. He sat in the dark for hours, the collection notice on the table like a death warrant. There was nothing left to sell, no more hours in the day to work. He was done. Defeated. Ready to call a bankruptcy lawyer and let the system swallow him whole. His landlord called, reminding him he had to clear out his old storage unit by the end of the week. Buried under boxes of his failed startup's merchandise, he found an old laptop. Chloe's old laptop. She had left it behind, claiming it was too slow. On a whim, he plugged it in. It flickered to life. Her files were a digital monument to her materialism, but one folder caught his eye: finances. Inside were spreadsheets, credit card statements, and chat logs with her friends. The truth hit him like a physical blow. The lavish lifestyle, the expensive dinners, the trips, they were all financed by her debt. She was drowning in credit card bills and personal loans, using his then promising startup as a shield to project an image of effortless wealth. The invoice she sent him was not a list of what he owed her, it was a near-perfect copy of her credit card statement from the month before he went broke. He felt a surge of righteous fury. He had found it. The weapon to end this. He took a screenshot of her debt spreadsheet and her chat logs where she bragged about getting Alex to pay for everything, and emailed it to her with a single sentence: "The game is over." For a moment, he felt the intoxicating thrill of victory. Her reply came in less than 5 minutes. It was not an apology. It was a checkmate. "Show that to anyone, Alex. Please. You the failed entrepreneur who could not even afford to take his girlfriend to dinner. I'm the victim who just wanted what I was promised. Who do you think they believe?" And in that moment, he knew she was right. She had perfectly weaponized his own public failure against him. His truth was worthless. He was lower than rock bottom. He stared at the collection agency letter again, his last thread of hope gone. He was about to tear it up when his eye caught a detail in the logo. The eagle's head was facing the wrong way. A quick search of Prestige Asset Recovery yielded nothing. No website. No business registration. The address was a mailbox rental store. It was fake. She had faked the whole thing to push him over the edge. And in that moment, everything shifted. A profound, chilling clarity washed over him. He had been playing her game, by her rules, on her field. The objective of her game was not to get the money, it was to keep him paying, to keep him trapped in a prison of shame she controlled. The only way to win was to stop playing. He walked over to his desk, took the invoice she had sent him, and placed it in a simple black frame. Then, he took the engagement ring, and with a pair of pliers, he carefully, deliberately, worked the diamond loose from its platinum setting. He placed the small, brilliant stone in a tiny velvet pouch. He put the pouch in a small box, along with a single, printed note. The next day, Chloe received the package. Inside, there was no check. Just the loose diamond and the note. It read, "Paid in full for the education." She was left with a devalued stone and a message that screamed her power over him was gone. Alex went back to his apartment and hung the framed invoice on the wall next to his desk. It was not a monument to his debt. It was his declaration of independence. His proof that the most expensive bills have nothing to do with money, and the only way to pay them is to realize you owe nothing at all. Have you ever been handed a dream on a silver platter, only to feel the weight of it crushing you? We all ask for a miracle, a breakthrough, that one lucky chance. But what happens when the universe finally says yes, and a voice inside you screams no? What if you were the one standing in your own way? This is a story for anyone who has ever believed they were unworthy of their own victory. He won a $10 million lottery. That night, his family watched as he quietly burned the winning ticket. The slip of paper, flimsy and insignificant, curled into a black fist in the fireplace, taking with it a future of new cars, a bigger house, and paid-off debts. His 10-year-old son, eyes wide with a confusion that would soon harden into resentment, looked from the fire to his father. His wife, Sarah, did not scream. Her silence was louder, a hollow space in the room where their shared dreams used to be. The antagonist was not in the room, it was inside Leo's head, a cold, heavy certainty that whispered, "People like us do not get to win. We manage, we survive, we do not win." He thought by burning the ticket, he was destroying a monster that would tear them apart with greed and expectation. He was choosing the safety of their small, predictable life over the chaos of wealth. "It's for the best," he whispered, the words tasting like ash. Sarah finally moved, her hand shaking as she placed a white envelope on the coffee table. "I was going to give this to you tomorrow," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. It was a foreclosure notice. They had 30 days to leave their home. The logic of his choice became his prison. He had burned their only escape route to protect a life that was already sinking. The next morning, Sarah packed a bag for herself and their son. "I can forgive you for being scared, Leo," she said, standing at the door. "But I not forgive you for making us pay for your fear." The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was the sound of his world ending. He went to his job at the packaging warehouse, the familiar rhythm of taping boxes now a funeral drumbeat. His co-workers had heard about the win, the congratulations felt like accusations. He could not focus, mislabeling a critical shipment. His supervisor, a man who preached about stability and never taking risks, fired him on the spot. "We need people we can rely on," he said, his voice laced with a grim satisfaction. Leo was now jobless, family-less, and soon to be homeless. He had desperately tried to hold on to his small, steady world, and in doing so, had systematically demolished it. He sat on the floor of his empty house, the foreclosure notice in his hand, trapped in a downward spiral he had created. He had not just failed, he had become a living monument to failure. Days later, sitting in a dimly lit diner, he got a call from a number he did not recognize. It was a journalist from the local paper. "Mr. Collins," she said, "I'm doing a story on local heroes. We heard what you did with the lottery winnings." Leo was confused. The story was out, but it was twisted. A rumor had spread that he, D1, and anonymously donated the entire sum to the Children's Hospital, which had recently been saved from bankruptcy by a mysterious multi-million-dollar gift. For a moment, a blinding flash of hope hit him. Maybe he could use this. He could take the credit, become the town hero, and maybe, just maybe, Sarah would see him as a man who made a noble sacrifice, not a coward who burned their future. But the journalist continued, her voice turning sharp. "The thing is, the hospital confirmed their donation was from the estate of a wealthy recluse who died last month. So, Mr. Collins, the whole town thinks you a saint. But you and I both know that ticket is just ash. Tell me, what does it feel like to be a hero for a lie?" The trap snapped shut. He was now not only a failure but a fraud. He was at his lowest point, a man who had nothing left but a reputation he had not earned and could not bear. At rock bottom, there is a strange clarity. Sitting in that diner, stripped of everything, Leo finally saw the truth. The problem was never the money. The problem was the story he told himself, the story that he was small, that he was unworthy, that his destiny was to barely get by. The choice he made in front of the fire was not between wealth and poverty, it was between believing in a bigger future or clinging to a familiar, failing past. That inherited fear was the real antagonist. He took out his phone and called Sarah. She answered, her voice wary. "I do not have money," Leo said, his own voice raw but clear. "I do not have a job or a house. But I finally understand. I spent my whole life being afraid of failing at something big, so I chose to succeed at staying small. And I lost everything anyway." He took a breath. "The money is gone. But I'm not. Let me start over. Not with a lottery ticket, but with my own 2 hands. Let me build something, even if it is small, that is not based on fear." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. The next day, Leo walked into a bank and applied for a small business loan. He was rejected. So was he at the next bank, and the one after that. But he did not stop. The final image was not of him rich or famous, but of him standing with Sarah in front of a small, grimy storefront for rent, holding a business plan covered in notes. It was terrifying. It was uncertain. And for the first time in his life, it felt like winning. So, I ask you, what dream are you holding in your hand right now? What winning ticket are you ready to burn because you're afraid of the life that comes with it? Leo's story is not about money, it's about permission. The permission you give yourself to be bigger than your fears. Your potential is not the problem. Your thinking about your potential is. The world will hand you opportunities. It's up to you not to turn them to ash. The choice is not what you have. It's what you believe you deserve. I'll be back next week with another story. Until then, stop waiting for permission. Your life is waiting for you to claim it. You ignored your mother's last call because a 15-second TikTok felt more urgent than her voice. You saw her name pop up on the screen, Mom, and you felt a small flash of irritation. You were in the middle of a perfect moment. You were sitting in a trendy cafe in downtown Seattle, the lighting was perfect, and you were watching a video of a girl dancing in front of a private jet. It was glamorous. It was exciting. It was everything your life was not. Your mother's voice, with its slow, tired accent and its repetitive questions about your dinner and your laundry, felt like a heavy anchor dragging you down into a boring world. You swiped the red button. You did not just silence the phone, you silenced her. You told yourself, I'll call her back when I am not so busy. But were you busy? You were just a ghost, floating in a digital sea, chasing the approval of strangers. You went back to the screen. You scrolled. You liked. You shared. You felt a fake sense of power. You decided to record your own video, a 10-second clip of your expensive latte with a caption about hustle culture. You needed people to see you were successful, even if your bank account was nearly empty and your heart was even emptier. The blue light of the phone reflected in your eyes, blinding you to the real world. Then, a message arrived from your sister. It said, "Pick up the phone. Now." You rolled your eyes. Everyone is so dramatic today, you whispered to yourself. You ignored the message and started looking for the right music for your latte video. You were determined to make this post go viral. You were choosing a digital lie over a living truth, and you did not even realize that the gates of your own treasury were starting to close. You stayed in that cafe for 3 hours, lost in the spiral of the For You page. Every time you tried to put the phone down, a new video started. A prank. A recipe. A conspiracy theory. Your brain felt like it was on fire, jumping from one spark to another. You felt a strange pressure in your chest, but you ignored it. You saw another call from your sister, then one from your aunt. You felt a wave of anger. Why not they leave me alone? I'm trying to work on my brand, you thought. This was your choice, the brand over the blood. You finally posted your video. You waited for the likes to roll in. 10 likes. 50 likes. 100. You felt a rush of dopamine. It felt better than a hug. It felt better than a conversation. But as the sun began to set over the city, casting long, orange shadows across the pavement, the air in the cafe grew cold. Your phone vibrated again. It was a text from your sister. Only 4 words, "It is too late." You felt a cold shiver run down your spine. Your ego tried to protect you. She's just trying to guilt trip me, you told yourself. You decided to go for a walk to clear your head, but you did not look at the trees or the people. You looked at your phone. You were checking the comments on your latte video. Someone called you inspirational. Someone else asked what filters you used. You felt like a king. You did not notice that you had walked 3 blocks in the wrong direction. You did not notice the sirens in the distance. You were so busy living in a 6-inch screen that the 6-mile world around you was disappearing. You were falling, faster than you knew, into a hole that had no bottom. The truth arrived not with a scream, but with a notification. You were standing on a street corner, still scrolling, when you saw a live broadcast from a local news channel. The headline read, "Fatal Accident on I-5." You clicked it. You could not help yourself, you were addicted to the shock. The camera showed a silver sedan crushed between 2 trucks. You recognized that car. It had a small, faded sticker on the back window, a flower you had bought for your mother when you were 10 years old. Your heart stopped. You felt the world tilt. You remembered the call you ignored. The time of the crash matched the exact minute you had swiped the red button. You finally opened your voicemail. There was one message. You pressed play, your hand shaking so hard the phone almost fell. You expected to hear her voice, but instead, you heard the terrifying sound of twisting metal and the loud, rhythmic thud of a car rolling. And then, a whisper. It was your mother. She was not calling to ask about your laundry. She was calling because she knew she was about to die. "Leo," she whispered through the sound of blood and broken glass. "Leo, I'm scared. I just wanted to hear your voice one last time. I love you." The line went dead. You stood in the middle of the sidewalk, surrounded by hundreds of people, but you were completely alone. The inspirational video you had posted was still getting likes. Your phone buzzed in your hand, another notification. Someone had started following you. You looked at the screen and saw the girl dancing in front of the jet again. The algorithm did not care that your mother was dead. The algorithm just wanted your attention. You were in the lowest point of your life, holding the very weapon that had destroyed your last chance to say goodbye. You looked down at the phone in your hand. It felt heavy now, like a piece of lead. It was no longer a window to the world, it was a mirror. You saw your own face in the black glass. You looked tired, pale, and small. You realized that for the last 5 years, you had not really lived. You had been a spectator at your own funeral. You had traded the warmth of your mother's love for the cold glow of a pixel. You thought you were connected, but you were more isolated than a man on the moon. You realized that the thief was not the phone itself, the thief was your own desire to be seen by people who did not know your name. You walked to the nearest trash can and stared at your phone. It buzzed one more time. A notification from TikTok, "Do not miss out. See what's trending now." You felt a deep, burning disgust. Not for the app, but for the person you had become. You did not throw the phone away, that would be too easy. Instead, you turned it off. For the first time in years, the screen was black. You looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out over Seattle. They were beautiful, and they did not need a filter. You walked home in the silence, a silence that hurt, but a silence that was real. You went to your mother's house the next day. It smelled like her, lavender and old books. On the kitchen table was a small notebook. Inside, she had written a list of things she wanted to tell you. The last line said, "Tell Leo he is enough. He does not need to be famous to be loved." You fell to your knees and cried, not for the followers you lost, but for the moments you could never get back. You realized that every later you had ever said was a debt you could never repay. Now, when you walk down the street, you see them everywhere, the walking dead, their heads bowed to their glowing screens, swiping away their lives. You want to scream, to tell them that the treasury is closing, but you know they will not hear you. They are waiting for the next 15-second video. You learned the hardest lesson of all: time is the only treasure we truly have, and once the sun sets, the gates of the palace never open again. You started today. You started living. Because you finally understood that the most important call you will ever receive will not come through an app, it comes from the people standing right in front of you, before they disappear forever. Every morning you drink the poison of stress and call it success. You are slowly killing your soul. Mark sat in his glass office on the 45th floor, staring at the black sludge in his paper cup. His heart was not beating, it was vibrating. It was 6:00 a.m. in New York, and the blue light from 3 different monitors burned his tired eyes. His hands shook as he reached for his phone. There were 42 unread messages, each one a tiny parasite sucking the life out of his morning. His stomach felt like it was filled with hot needles, a familiar pain he called the fire of ambition. In front of him sat a document. It was the Blackwood merger. If he signed it, he would become a senior partner. He would get the $1 million bonus, the corner office, and the respect of men he actually hated. But there was a problem. His daughter, Lily, was turning 6 today. He had promised her, with tears in his eyes, that he would be at her party at 4:00 p.m. Then, his boss, Mr. Sterling, walked in. Sterling smelled like expensive cigars and old sweat. He dropped a thick file on Mark's desk. The client changed the terms. You need to fix this by 5:00 p.m. today, or the deal is dead. And if the deal dies, Mark, your career dies with it. Mark looked at the photo of Lily on his desk. She was smiling, holding a yellow balloon. Then he looked at Sterling. The choice was a knife in his throat, the love of his daughter or the success he had bled for. Mark reached for his phone and sent a text to his wife, "Emergency at work. Ca not make the party. Tell Lily I am sorry." As he hit send, he felt something inside him snap. He felt a wave of nausea, a disgusting taste of copper in his mouth. He chose the poison. But then, Sterling smiled a yellow, crooked smile. Good choice. By the way, the client is flying in now. We are not doing this in the office. We are going to the private industrial site in New Jersey. You re-driving me. Mark realized he was not just working late, he was being taken away, trapped in a car with the man who was eating his life. The drive to New Jersey was a descent into a nightmare. The rain was heavy and gray, matching the color of Mark's skin. Sterling sat in the passenger seat, screaming into his phone, demanding more. Mark's stomach pain grew worse. He felt a cold sweat covering his body. He tried to drink more coffee from a thermos, but his body rejected it. He coughed, and a small splash of blood hit the steering wheel. He did not stop. He could not stop. He was a machine now, a slave to the Blackwood merger. Every time his phone buzzed with a message from his wife, he felt a surge of hatred. He hated his phone, he hated the rain, and he hated the way Sterling's heavy breathing filled the car. He tried to focus on the road, but the red tail lights of the cars in front of him looked like bleeding eyes. He was losing his mind. He missed a turn, and Sterling began to insult him. "You re-weak, Mark. You re-soft. This is why you need me. Without this stress, you are nothing but a ghost." They arrived at a rotting, industrial warehouse. The air smelled of chemicals and dead rats. Inside, the clients were waiting. They were not businessmen in suits, they were cold, silent men in shadows. Mark's laptop would not connect to the internet. He began to panic. He began to sweat so much that his shirt stuck to his skin like a dirty bandage. He was typing, calculating, and lying, trying to save a deal that felt like a heavy stone around his neck. He looked at his watch. 4:00 p.m. Lily was blowing out her candles. He was in a dark room with monsters, trading his blood for numbers on a screen. He felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his chest and fell to his knees, gasping for air. Sterling did not help him. Sterling just pointed at the screen and said, "Finish it." Mark lay on the cold, dirty concrete floor. His vision was blurring. He saw the clients and Sterling laughing. And then, the truth came out like a poisonous snake. One of the clients spoke. "The merger is a lie, Mark. There is no Blackwood company. We are moving money. Illegal money. And your name is the only one on the legal documents. You did not sign for success. You signed to be the one who goes to prison when the government finds out." Sterling knelt down next to Mark, his face inches away. His breath smelled like decay. "You were so hungry for success, Mark. You were so busy drinking the poison of stress that you did not even read the fine print. You wanted to be a hero. You were just a trash can for my crimes." Sterling took Mark's phone and threw it into a puddle of oily water. The screen shattered. The last thing Mark saw was a notification, a photo of Lily crying because her daddy was not there. Mark felt a wave of pure horror. He had destroyed his family, his health, and his future for a lie created by a man who looked at him like a piece of meat. He was at the very bottom. He had no phone, no career, no health, and no escape. The clients began to pack their bags, leaving Mark on the floor to wait for the police who would surely come. He was a hollow shell, a dead man who was still breathing. He looked at his trembling hands and saw the grease and the blood. He felt a deep, dark disgust for the men he had become. In the silence of that rotting warehouse, as the sirens began to wail in the distance, Mark stopped fighting. He lay flat on the cold ground. He did not think about the merger. He did not think about Sterling. He focused on one thing, his breath. He felt the cold air enter his lungs. He felt his heart slow down. He noticed a small weed growing through a crack in the concrete. It was green. It was alive. It did not care about mergers or millions. It was just there. A strange clarity washed over him. He realized that the poison only had power because he kept drinking it. He stood up slowly. His chest still ached, but his mind was quiet for the first time in 10 years. When the police burst through the doors, Mark did not run. He did not scream. He walked toward them with his hands up, but his eyes were peaceful. He told them everything. He gave them the files. He gave them Sterling. He lost his house, his car, and his reputation. 3 months later, Mark sat on a simple wooden bench in a small park. He had no suit. He had no expensive watch. He worked as a gardener, his hands covered in honest dirt instead of corporate grease. Lily ran toward him, laughing, holding a dandelion. He did not check his phone. He did not think about tomorrow's bills. He just picked her up and felt the warmth of the sun on his face. He was no longer a success in the eyes of the world, but for the first time, he was alive. You are watching this right now, and your heart is racing. Your neck is tight. Your phone is buzzing in your pocket like a hungry insect. You think that if you just work one more hour, if you just answer one more email, you will finally find peace. But you are wrong. The world exists only in this moment. The past is a ghost that haunts you. The future is a dream that scares you. But this breath, right now, is real. Why do you give your soul to people who do not know your name? Why do you trade your life for a success that smells like a grave? Stop. Look at your hands. Are they shaking? Look at your life. Is it yours, or does it belong to your boss? Every morning you drink the poison of stress and call it success. But the flame of your life is small and delicate. Protect it. Focus on the now. When you eat, just eat. When you love, just love. When you breathe, just breathe. Give your full attention to this moment, and you will find that the peace you were searching for was inside you all along. Stay present. Stay peaceful. And stop killing your soul for a world that will forget you tomorrow.